Namandab, 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 namandab. Namandab, 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 namandab.
Good morning. Welcome to today's Hanamatsuri Service, sponsored by the Kono Hongwanji Buddhist Women's Association. Today we celebrate the birth of Siddhartha Gautama, the one who would become Shakyamuni, the historical Buddha. Siddhartha Gautama was born in India on April 8th, 565 BC, the son of King Suddhodana and Queen Maya. Legend tells us that at the time of his birth in the beautiful Lumbini Gardens, sweet rain fell from the heavens to bathe the baby Buddha, birds sang, and flowers burst into bloom to mark the glorious event. This is why we call the Buddha's birthday Hanamatsuri. We decorate the flower shrine, or Hanamido, to depict Lumbini Gardens and pour sweet tea over the statue of the baby Buddha. We revere him as a great teacher who turned the wheel of Dharma for the liberation of all beings. We rejoice in being able to receive the teachings of Shakyamuni over 2,500 years after his birth. I am Stephen Kaneko, and I will serve as your MC for today's service. It's great to see all of you who are attending in person, and welcome all of those of you who have Zoomed in. As a reminder, for those of you on Zoom, please mute your mics during the entire service. Assisting Reverend Blaine at the temple with technical support are Alan Matsumoto, Joey Guzman, and Wendy Tirado. Corinne Chong is our organist. Please rise and let us start the service with the Vandana and Tisarana, led by Reverend Blaine. Please sing both the Pali and English parts together with him.
Exalted One, the enlightened One, the supremely awakened One. Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Butsunamanda, 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 Butsunamanda.
Please remain standing as Reverend Blaine will now share an aspiration.
Please join me in Gasho. We gather this morning, this beautiful day, to celebrate the wondrous birth of Siddhartha Gautama, the one who had become the Buddha, the awakened one. We revere him as the great teacher who shared with us the path of universal liberation, spiritual awakening, and peace. We rejoice in receiving his life-giving and life-transforming teachings over 2,500 years after his birth, as it offers us wise hope for living in our troubled world. Let us reflect on the words of the Kanmokuge Sutra as we offer sweet tea symbolizing the gentle rain perfumed by flowers that was said to have fallen in Lumbini Garden on that glorious day. I shall pour sweet tea in the numerous Buddhas. The wonderful virtues and pure wisdom of the Buddhas shall enable all sentient beings to cast off their defilements and be awakened to the absolute mind of the Buddha. Thus I bow in reverence to Shakyamuni Buddha, to the greatest and noblest among all men. We now pour sweet tea of the greatest virtue and extol the Buddha of absolute purity. May we always take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows us the way in this life, the Dharma, the way of understanding and love, and the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. Entrusting in the dynamic activity of all-inclusive wisdom and all-embracing compassion, we call the honored name of Amida, the Buddha of infinite light and life, in gratitude, joy, and awareness. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Nammanda Butsu, Nammanda Butsu, Nammanda Butsu.
Please be seated. We will now begin the traditional tea pouring ceremony, during which time Reverend Blaine will lead us in chanting the Kanmokuge Sutra. The words are on the screen and on the handouts. While we are chanting, the Sangha is invited to come up and pour sweet tea over Baby Buddha's statue, if you wish. Let's start with those seated in the front pews and work towards the back.
조치 쇼곤 그도 그즈 고조 그시조 료리 그 도쇼 뇨라이 조호싱 게시다이 쇼보갸본 텐조 텐게려소 그손 가토 공리 그도 그스이 강요 그뇨라이 조호싱 가곤 간모 그쇼뇨라이 조치 쇼곤 그도 그즈 고조 그시조 료리 그 도쇼뇨라이 조호싱 게시다이 쇼보갸본 텐조 텐게려소 그손 가토 공리 그도 그스이 간요 그뇨라이 조호싱 가곤 간모 그쇼뇨라이 조치 쇼곤 그도 그즈 고조 그시조 료리 그 도쇼뇨라이 조호싱 게시 大小宝牙本天上天下両足尊ガトコンニグドグスイ安欲如来上心が根幹目小如来上智小言具独樹五辱主上両陸道小如来上心下衆大小宝牙本天上天下両足尊ガトコンニグドグスイ観欲如来上心が根幹目小如来上智小言具独樹五辱主上両陸道小如来上心下衆大小宝牙本天上天下両足尊ガトコンニグドグスイ観欲如来上心が根幹目小如来上智小言具独樹五辱主上両陸道小如来上心下衆大小宝牙本天上天下両足尊ガトコンニグドグスイ観欲如来上心が根幹目小如来上智小言具独樹五辱主上両陸道小如来上心下衆大小宝牙本天上天下両足尊ガトコンニグドグスイ観欲如来上心が根幹目小如来上智小言具独樹五辱主上両陸道小如来上心下衆大小宝牙本天上天下両足尊ガトコンニグドグスイ観欲如来上心が根幹目小如来上智小言具独樹五辱主上両陸道小如来上 心下士大小菩提本天上天下両足尊ガトゴンニグドクスイン観欲如来上心ガコン観目小如来上智小言具独樹五直十上両陸道小如来上心下士大小菩提本天上天下両足尊ガトコンニグドクスイン観欲如来上心ガゴン観目小如来上智小言具独樹五直十上両陸道小如来上心下士大小菩提本天上天下両足尊ガトコンニグドクスイン観欲如来上心ガコン観目小如来上智小言具独樹五直十上両陸道小如来上心下士大小菩提本天上天下両足尊ガトコンニグドクスイン観欲如来上心ガコン観目小如来上智小言具独樹五直十上両陸道小如来上心下士大小菩提本天上天下両足尊ガトコンニグドクスイン観欲如来上心ガコン観目小如来上智小言具独樹五直十上両陸道小如来上心下士大小菩提本天上天下両足尊ガトコンニグドクスイ観欲如来上心ガコン観目小如来上智小言具独樹五直十上両陸道小如来上心下士大小菩提本天上天下両足尊ガトコンニグドクスイン観欲如来上心ガコン観目小如来上智小言具 是周流的根，周受牛大周行，给是大受不压崩，天周天给流所可松。嘎托公尼格多格孙，甘有格牛大周行，嘎公甘莫格受牛大周其受公格多格之。国周格是周流的根，多受牛大周行，给是大受不压崩，天周天给流所格松，嘎托公尼格多格孙，甘有格牛大周行，嘎公甘莫格受牛大周其受公格多格之。国周格是周流的根，多受牛大周行，给是大受不压崩，天周天给流所可松，嘎托公尼格多格孙，甘有格牛大周行。Namandas, namandas, namandas, namandas.
Let us now observe a moment of silent meditation.
Namandab, 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 namandab.
Reverend Blaine will now lead us in chanting the sutra Sanbutsuge. The words are on page 47 of the Red Service book, as well as on the screen.
The Buddha of infinite light and life made vows to embrace all beings equally without exception. These vows promise to create a perfect world where no suffering or evil exists and guides us to supreme awakening. The Sambutsuge, or hymn in praise of Buddha, is a poem from the larger Pure Land Sutra, in which Amida Buddha, as a bodhisattva, praises his teacher and makes his 48 vows to establish the Pure Land of Enlightenment for the welfare and the happiness of all beings. We chant the words of the Buddha as a reminder of these great vows made to awaken us all. the hymn in praise of Buddha, Sambutsuge. 지가 신요 개려 신시 쇼그도 그주 가교 쇼징 닌즈 흑갱 Namanda, 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 Namanda.
Please rise for the Gatha, Happy Buddha Day, on page 56 in the Praises of the Buddha Gatha book and on the screen. Again, on page 56 in the Praises of the Buddha. If you notice, Auntie Betty isn't here today, so she wrote into the script. It says, please sing out loud as Betty is not here to lead us today. So let's do her proud, okay?
Okay, let's start again.
Page 56 in the Praises of the Buddha book. was pretty good. By the third verse, I think we got it, huh? Okay, please be seated. At this time, I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Reverend Stephen Toyoshima from Higashi Hongwanji Mission of Hawaii in Honolulu. Reverend Toyoshima was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, a Yonsei, fourth generation Japanese American, growing up in the suburbs of LA. Stephen was unfamiliar with Buddhism before a pivotal interview with the head minister of Los Angeles Higashi Hongwanji Temple for an architecture class assignment. From that first meeting, Stephen would eventually become a regular Sunday service attendee, temple member, and part of the temple's Dharma Msg's layperson education program. After graduation from architecture school and working in the video game industry as a community manager, Stephen was offered an opportunity to be part of a pilot program to train English-speaking ministers in Japan. In December 2016, Stephen began a year of intensive Japanese study and internship at the Higashi Hongwanji Mother Temple in Kyoto, Japan. In 2018, Stephen entered a one-year program at the Otani Seminary to learn history, ritual, calligraphy, music, and much more needed to become a minister. After graduation in March of 2019, Stephen was assigned to be the new minister at the Higashi Hongwanji Mission of Hawaii in Honolulu. Reverend Toyoshima is unable to join us in person or via Zoom, so he has sent a recorded message. So please turn your attention to the screens.
Hello, good morning, Ohio gozaimasu, everybody. Thank you very much for having me speak to you today. I'll begin with a gasho. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Reverend Steve Toyoshima. I'm the minister here at Higashi Hongwanji Mission of Hawaii. And I was a little surprised that Blaine Sensei asked if I could give the Dharma talk for Hanamatsuri. I have not had the chance to visit Kona, I think since I was 2 years old, when my parents took me to Hawaii for the first time. So I haven't had the chance to visit Kona yet, but getting to listen to Blaine's Dharma talks during the pandemic, it was really good to be able to keep in touch and to listen to other teachers at that time. So now, I'm very lucky to be able to speak to you folks today. I'm a relative newcomer to Buddhism. I didn't grow up in the Buddhist tradition. My parents took me to a Presbyterian church when I was just a kid, but as I got into high school and I got into college, I wanted to learn more about Japanese culture, and that one of the some of the biggest organizations that we had back in Los Angeles were the Buddhist temples in Little Tokyo and in different parts of LA, where the old traditions that people had brought with them when they had immigrated to the United States and had passed down to their descendants. It's something that I wanted to learn more about, and that Buddhism was a way to study Japanese language and culture all at the same time. And so one of the things I remember most from when I first started studying Buddhism seriously when I was in college was that we would have a Los Angeles Buddhist Federation Hanamatsuri Day. And I didn't really know what that meant, but when you went to the Hanamatsuri service, you had ministers from all the different Japanese Buddhist denominations that would come and gather. They'd be dressed up in their formal robes, and they would throw these Bodhi leaf shaped pieces of paper around, while they were chanting. It was a very beautiful service, and that is when I first learned the story of Hanamatsuri. So one of the troubles with doing a Hanamatsuri Dharma talk is that Well, it's kind of like when we talk about the early days of Shinran Shonin, or when we talk about the experience of the Four Gates or Buddha's awakening. I'm sure everybody's heard the story many, many, many times, but I thought that it would be nice to, kind of take this opportunity to go back to try to put ourselves in the mindset of what it must have been like for Siddhartha or Shakyamuni's parents at the time, what community, what things were like 2,500 years ago when Shakyamuni was walking the earth. And so for this year's Hanamatsuri Dharma talk, I wanted to take everybody back in time over 2,500 years, to ancient India, to a community where the Shaka clan lived. It's a little different from here. The Shaka clan was one that was doing farming, raising rice. And so, King Suddhodana, the Buddha's father, or Shakyamuni's father, his name comes from that, having to do with rice. So when we go back to the time of Shakyamuni's birth, communities were starting to form, civilizations were forming in ancient Egypt and ancient Europe. Moving and shaking was going on, and the same was happening in India. All around that time, there are lots of upheavals of civilization changing, and so Shakyamuni would eventually come to represent a huge change in the way that people looked at the world. But, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We have to go back to the days before Shakyamuni was born. You see, King Suddhodana and Queen Maya, they were very much in love. They were the clan leadership of the Shaka clan, and so Queen Maya was said to be very beautiful, very intelligent, very virtuous. Nobody had a bad thing to say about her, but the one thing that she wanted more than anything else was a baby. Same with many, many couples nowadays. And so, for 20 years they had hoped to have a child. It's certainly a long time to want to have something but not be able to have what we want. But they say that they had a big festival in Kapilavastu, the capital city of the Shaka clan of this region, and so Queen Maya had gone out, and so she had distributed thousands of gold coins to the giving alms to the poor, and she had returned to the palace, all puckered out. And so as she lied down on her bed, she had a very unusual dream. In her dream, she was spirited away from the castle by these 4 heavenly beings who brought her to a beautiful mansion in the Himalaya mountains, where she was bathed in scented water, adorned in beautiful clothing, and draped in a garland of flowers. Soon after, in that dream, in the distance, coming over the mountains, she could see the figure of a pure white elephant. And seeing a white elephant, outside of New Year's rummage sale time, it's kind of a rare thing. And so as it got closer, she saw that this elephant, it had 6 tusks, and it had a very thin, silvery trunk. And in its trunk at the end, it was carrying a lotus flower. And so, it gets closer and closer, traveling, at a very fast speed. And so it goes right into the mansion. It circles around her 3 times and then strikes her on the side, on her side with its trunk, and disappears. She wakes up from this dream and soon realizes that after those 20 years of waiting, she's become pregnant, and her and the king rejoiced. It's a truly joyous occasion for them, as it is for all couples who are trying at a baby. After the long months of pregnancy had passed, it was custom at the time for the mother to travel back to her hometown to give birth in the home where she was born. And so the same with Queen Maya, she was traveling back home, but she knew that she was not going to be able to make it all the way back, and so they stopped at a place called Lumbini, a beautiful garden. And, beautiful trees, all kinds of animals making all kinds of beautiful sounds, and a very beautiful place to give birth. So the whole procession, her attendants and servants and things like that, they'd all stopped there at Lumbini, and so she goes wandering through this beautiful forest, and when she knows the time is right, she puts her hand on a tree branch, and baby Buddha pops out of her side. It's certainly a little different from the kind of births that we know, but you got to go along with this. And so at the time the baby is born, flowers are falling from the sky, flowers are blooming everywhere. You have a sweet rain that begins to fall with like a perfume scented rain that is sweet, and it starts falling down. And this baby, unlike, usually, how babies love, this baby is very confident. This baby, stands on his own 2 feet. He walks 6 paces. He walks 6, and then he goes 1 more and stops. He takes 7 steps, points the right hand at the sky and the left hand at the ground, and says, above, below the heavens and above the earth, I alone am most noble, or I am the world-honored one. It seems like kind of a crazy thing for a child to say, but in the legend of Shakyamuni, there is a reason why. Strange as it may be to hear a baby talk, much less to declare him or herself the most noble in the world, I think that this is a declaration of all newborns. During the 3 treasures, we say, difficult is it to be born as a human being. Difficult is it to be born, but now we are living it. Difficult is it to receive life as a human being. Now we receive it. There are causes and conditions that had to have come together in just the right way to result in the creation of us. Is mathematically a crazy, a very big probability that would have made it difficult for us to come out at the time and place and in the circumstance in which we are born. And so it's the exact same thing with Shakyamuni. His parents had tried for 20 years, they say, to conceive, and he comes around, and he's born in this beautiful place. And the reason why we have this story is to show just how wonderful it is to be born. And so even though it sounds strange that Shakyamuni is saying, I alone am most noble, certainly this refers to the teachings that he would later give to the world, that he would transmit for us all to hear. In reality, it's a symbol of how unique and wonderful it is to have babies born, to be born as a human being. A wonderful thing that we all share, even if we're not born in Lumbini Garden, even if we don't take 7 steps and start talking, it's all unique and wonderful, the circumstances that led to us being able to be born, to listen to the Dharma, and to be living here and now. And so in a microcosm, this story is a celebration, not just of Shakyamuni, but everybody through our connection to each other. Now, after this really auspicious, wonderful birth, his parents would name him Siddhartha, meaning every wish fulfilled. Now, as mother and child returned to the palace, after mother and child had returned to the palace, and that King Suddhodana could see his newborn son, a strange visitor arrived. See, at the time, it was common for wise men, monks, and soothsayers to live up in the mountains. And so you had a very strange man come down from the Himalayas and knock on the doors of the palace. And he went in to speak with the king and queen, and he had a prophecy. He had the destiny, the future of this young prince on his mind. So he told them that there were two different ways that Prince Siddhartha's life could go. He could become a great conqueror, a warrior, and so for the caste that Shakyamuni, or that Siddhartha, was born into, he was part of this, would be like the samurai class, the warrior caste, that, they were the military leaders and, would handle the jobs of war and conquest and things like that. And so King Suddhodana was very excited at that. He said, "Oh, great, that sounds wonderful." But the wise men said, but there's another future that I see for this young child. And so Asita, this wise man, this soothsayer, he said that the other future I foresee for this child is that if he doesn't stay in the palace, if he leaves, in his youth and seeks out, he goes seeking for knowledge, goes seeking for a greater truth out in the wilderness, leaving his home and his fortune and family behind, he will become a great teacher. And as much as nowadays we would love for our children to be teachers and educators and things like that, for King Suddhodana, well, that was something that was just not heard of at the time. If you were born into the class of warriors, it'd be very unusual for you to leave that class. It would be, leaving behind your family fortune, your connection to all the people that would be completely unheard of. And so the important part of the Buddha's story is that his life does not take the path that was expected of him. He does not, even though his parents wanted him very much to become a leader, a ruler just like them, his path would take him in a very different direction. And of course, the temples we have here, the Buddha Dharma that we are very lucky to be able to listen to, are a result of him taking the path less traveled. Because Siddhartha, even from his very childhood, he was kind of an unusual and thoughtful kid. It was during a festival, a plowing festival outside the palace, that in the city, that he had seen a plow kind of turning up the earth, and he had seen a earthworm that had been unearthed by this plow, and he saw a bird fly down and eat the little worm. And so even though he was being prepared to take over the country, even though he was learning how to shoot an arrow, to fight with swords, how to all the things that a king would know, even at a young age, he saw this scene of a bird eating a worm, and it caused him a lot of distress. Why must we have to harm other living beings in order to live? And so this is a thing that would be a seed planted in his mind of this, the suffering of living beings that would, twist around and go around in his head for so many years before eventually, he would finally, leave the palace walls. He would finally get to see suffering, sickness, old age, getting to see death for the first time. And it's something that would propel him out of the palace walls to seek a cure for the suffering that plagues mankind. But that's a story for the Bodhi Day service. For right now, we're talking about Hanamatsuri. We're talking about the wonderful occasion of the Buddha's birth. And so long before he would go out, he would sit under that tree and he would become enlightened. He was a baby boy. Sorry, I had to move over a little bit. We've got some sun coming in the window. When we go back to the story of Hanamatsuri, the importance here, the symbolism, I think, is that Shakyamuni, Maya, his mother, they were not born in a vacuum. All of them are the result of causes and conditions that came together to result in his birth. And that when he is born, the rain, the flowers, the forest surrounding the animals, the attendance, it shows that even though it seems like we're born alone into this world, in reality, we're surrounded by and connected to all living things. And so, one of the things that all different denominations of Buddhism agree on is the importance of that interconnectedness, that connection that we have to every other living thing. The rains are important because they cause the crops to grow. The animals, they eat the grass on the ground, they eat the plants, and then we consume the animals or choose not to consume the animals if you're vegetarian. But we're all part of this great golden chain that connects us all to one another. And so, it's very easy for us to see Shakyamuni as this singular figure or revere him as a saint or something like that. But in reality, Shakyamuni is so wonderful because he is just a regular human being like we are. And that within each and every one of us is that same capacity, that the same causes and conditions, the many generations coming together to result in our parents and ourselves being born. And so we're able to follow in his footsteps to seek out this greater truth about the world, to look for a cure for suffering that all of us are suffering from when we're dealing with sickness, old age, and death. That one of the reasons why we're so grateful to Shakyamuni, not as a god or not as a creator, but as a guide, a fellow traveler who's leading us towards the wonderful teachings that he and the teachers who would come after would leave for us to hear. So on Hanamatsuri, we give our thanks to Shakyamuni. We get to think about Shakyamuni or Prince Siddhartha. We get to think a little bit about his life and to show our deep gratitude for the life, the teachings that his own life represents, and for being able to gather together with our fellow seekers as we try to follow in Prince Siddhartha's footsteps as seekers ourselves. So, happy Buddha Day, everybody. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week, and you all have a great rest of the day. Thank you for listening. Namo Thanks. Namo Thanks. Namo Thanks.
Thank you for the Buddha Day message, Reverend Toyoshima. Now, Claudia Chang will lead us in unison reading of the Eightfold Path to Happiness. Words can be found on the handouts and on the screens. So please join her in reciting the words out loud.
The teachings of the Buddha help us to understand the oneness of all life. To lead us in the right direction, the Buddha provided us with the Eightfold Path, right views, to keep free of prejudice and superstition, right thoughts, to turn our minds away from violence and hatred, right speech, to refrain from harmful talk and to use our words wisely, right conduct, to see that our deeds come from peace and goodwill, to grow every day in the Buddha's teachings. In such a way that we avoid causing suffering. Right energy. Right mindfulness. To cherish a good mind for all that we think and to in the mind. Right meditation. To study the teachings of the Buddha and to practice them to the best of our abilities. May the presence of the Buddha, who said that he would live in his teachings, be our guide. May we follow this path until we too realize nirvana. Thank you.
We will now have the offertory presentation. So mahalo for your generosity, everyone. Please rise as we will conclude this service with the singing of the Gatha Nembutsu.
Namandab, 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 namandab.
You may be seated. So this concludes today's Hanamatsuri service. Here are some announcements. Upcoming schedule of events and reminders. Regular Dharma family service will be held next Sunday, April 16th and on April 23rd. Kyodan President Linda Nagai will share a Dharma message on the 16th. All services will start at 10 a.m. Calling all 2023 graduates. If you have a child or a grandchild that will be graduating or has graduated from a high school, 2-year or 4-year college, or a professional school this year, please let the temple office know by Monday, April 17th. We would like to honor all 2023 graduates, including those obtaining masters, doctorates, etc., at our Dharma family service on April 30th. Reminders, Be sure to open, read, and click on attachments and interesting links that were included in Reverend Blaine's weekly update, which he emailed this past Friday. Information on scholarship applications is also included in his email. 2023 Temple membership update forms have been mailed out with the April Jiho. Please be sure to complete and return them as soon as possible. The 2023 Honpa Hongwanji Mission of Hawaii calendars, 125th souvenir booklet and gifts, and free COVID test kits are still available for pickup. Are there any other announcements, Reverend Blaine or anyone else?
Thank you everyone for coming to Hanamatsuri. First thing, I was back there and I noticed there are flowers, and the flowers are not for decoration, it's for you to take, because it is Hanamatsuri. Remember, it's not sakura, and it's a sakura chira chira, but this is orchid, chira chira. So please take one, and just as a remembrance, today is Hanamatsuri, Buddha's birthday, and flowers fell from the heavens. Please take one and go with you. And speaking of flowers, I would like to thank everyone who donated flowers for our beautiful Hanamido. But you could bring the flowers and nothing could be done. So we had some very talented people making this yesterday, working all day. Okay. Janet Maeda was the lead. And we had Pauline Oshiro, Myrna Kunihiro, and Nathan and Cheryl Kurashigase. And Nathan said, I was only going to come to watch. But good old Janet put him to work, right? So that's why it came out really nice. We had that little masculine touch to it, I think. But really, thank you to them for making this beautiful Hanamido for us. And today, for refreshments, you'll have some manju. And every year the BWA makes manjus for sale. But we're not selling it this year. We made them. And so Fujie Chishita, and we had Helen Nagata and Glenda Pasalaqua and Morris in the kitchen yesterday making manju. So you'll have manju for refreshments and bags of it to take home if you want. And I guess that's about it, right? But thank you so much for everyone coming today, and thank you again for the beautiful flowers that made our beautiful Hanamido.
Thank you, Linda. Once again, mahalo to Reverend Stephen Toyoshima for preparing his recorded message as our guest speaker today. So those of you on Zoom, when you're ready to leave, just tap on or click on the Leave Meeting button on your screen. Those of you who are here in person, refreshments will be served in the social hall. Mahalo to the BWA for preparing their famous manju for us today and for providing the other goodies as well. Thank you everyone for joining us. Please stay safe, and we hope to see you at future services. Thank you.
Namandam, namandam, namandam.